Today, I'm chatting with Darian Johnson, designer of the Newt, an open source digital assistant that will be available on Crowd Supply soon.
So first question, how did you get started with electronics and designing hardware?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a weird story. I'll first start by saying I went to school for engineering, got an engineering degree, a mechanical engineering degree, and then I went right into technology consulting. And I do that as a day job, and I love it, and it's all good. Where I did some coding, but not a lot of coding, and certainly no hardware. But about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago now, I guess, I was exploring moving into another part of our organization, moving to our cloud practice, specifically working on the AWS cloud. So I took some training, did some stuff online, and it just wasn't clicking. Happened to around the same time, come across Hackster, Hackster.io.
Cool.
So they had a contest. So they had a contest related to hardware and this cloud thing that I was trying to learn. So I figured, okay, and maybe I should try to merge these things together. And I did, and I just got hooked. And each project's gotten more and more complex. And first I started with Raspberry Pis, then I moved to actually Arduinos. And then I moved to, soldering them together. And then I moved to designing my own PCB. So it's been a bit of a journey the last 5 years, but that's how I ended up where I am today, I guess.
Now you have this really awesome piece of hardware, the Newt.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
I guess what inspired you to create this?
Yeah. So a couple of different things. My first hardware projects were display-based devices. So displays are easy, and I liked some of the display things I did, but I was really frustrated with the fact that they required to be plugged in, right? They, whether it's Arduino or Raspberry Pi, if I'm connected to the internet, has me plugged in, the OLED or the TFT, it's just sucking, every little bit out of a battery when it's on. And that's really what led me to this. I wanted something that I could put on my mirror or my refrigerator or on my nightstand and have it be unconnected and last for months on a charge. And then I looked at some other things, and I didn't want e-ink exactly because of the refresh of the e-ink. Like I like e-ink, but I wanted a clock, and I didn't want the strobe, the black white strobe light thing every 10 or 20 refreshes.
Yeah,
So I found this sharp e-ink display that's low power, much more expensive. But I found that and I said, okay, I think I can build something around this, yada, yada, yada. And that's what really led to the Newt. At the end of the day, I just want something low power that I could someplace without a battery. Oh, sorry, someplace without a plug.
I know what you mean with the e-ink stuff, like just the refresh can be really distracting.
Yeah.
I guess do you happen to know, like, what is it about the Sharp that makes it so that it can
Yeah. So
power?
it's a memory and pixel display. So what happens is, so it's only two colors, right? It's black or white, on or off. And I think I just hit that one button. So it will save in memory whether a particular pixel's on or off. So it saves in a memory so that you can disconnect. You can't disconnect power, but can run in a very low current rather, and save that image, save that pixel information. So once I write that particular pixel, it will always know that it is on or off, black or white. And then, so that's the one cool thing. So it doesn't require multiple refreshes. And then I do need to send a bit of a pulse, maybe a 1 hertz pulse. So once a second pulse to keep it up to date, but you can do that with the 555. I'm actually using the clock out for the RTC to do that.
Okay.
You can do it with software as well, but that's the magic of it. So
Very cool.
So that's also how it works. The display will save the information about the particular pixel, and it will retain it in its memory, and it's either on or off.
Excellent. And there's a lot of features that you've built into it, like weather and clock, of course, and then air quality. What's your favorite feature of it?
It's two things. I'd say I like the alarm just because I'm a sucker for, like, I love watches. I love clocks. I don't know. That's my thing. That's my other passion and hobby, which I spend too much money and time on. So I just like the fact that there's a timer and an alarm. And then I like the habit calendar. So there is let's see if I can find it, maybe. Okay. So there's a habit calendar. So it's just a regular calendar, and you can check whether you have done a thing or not done a thing that day. So I've been using this, not this version, but the one that I have elsewhere to track working out, right? So if I go walk or work out, I get a black mark, and if I don't, it stays white or gray. So not enough check marks in my personal Newt in my room, but that's okay. Those are the two things I like about it, I guess.
That's really cool. I like the habit calendar. It's similar to Simone.
It's exactly, it was
Yeah.
that was the inspiration. I was like, that's awesome. But again, like it's got to be plugged in, and I just hate cords. I would love to build a large, e-ink low power thing like that. Now that's, maybe that's 5 years from now, but that would be very cool to do.
And I also do want to point out the Cap Touch
button. Oh yes, yeah, that was a beast.
I really like those.
Yeah, that was harder to figure out than I planned, and that took a lot of trial and error, a lot of looking at other examples of things. But yeah, and look, I think if I did it again, I probably wouldn't use Cap Touch, but it's just easier to manufacture because everything's on one side. If I put the buttons on the other side, now I've got a two-sided, I've got components on both sides that I've got to figure out how to do. And when I was doing the prototyping, I'm using, a toaster oven, and I'm using kind of a mini hot plate. So I need it simple. So
gotcha.
That's why I ended up with the Cap Touch more than anything. Simplicity.
Nice. And kind of building on that, what was the hardest step in creating the Newt? And also with everything going on with chip shortages, did you run into any issues with that and having to design around that?
I'd say I wanted to use an ESP32S2. I wanted to make it I'm very comfortable with the ESP32, but it doesn't have native USB support. It needs another USB to UART or the serial programmer. This has native USB, so I knew it could be coded directly, whether it was on Arduino or CircuitPython. So I knew I wanted to use that chip. But when I started about a year ago, there wasn't a lot of documentation about it. So there was a lot of trial and error, a lot of not understanding the data sheet, making some assumptions about things and realizing, oh, this doesn't exactly work this way. So that was the hardest challenge. And I'd say for the chip shortage, 100%. It's not as bad off, but there was a time where I couldn't assemble some samples because I needed the ESP32S2 W rover. So I got those in. And then the RTC is a very funky RTC. It's not one that you typically use. It's one from microcrystal, and it's super duper low power. It lets you keep an alarm and a timer and a periodic clock and an RTC and a hertz out. So it does all these great things, but they're expensive and they are a little hard to find. So it took a little while for me to get some of those in stock. Those are the biggest things, but it looks like everything I need in stock or will be in stock in the next month, which is when I'm hoping to get to launch on Crowd Supply and figure out how many I need to make and get them made and go from there.
That's great. And I'm curious, where you're saying the RTC is a little funky. How did you kind of make your choice then on the RTC?
Yeah, I found a good article on Hackaday actually, where they give some examples of the latest RTCs, and I thought I'd use, they had some examples of some, which led me down to finding this one. So this particular one, the RB3027, was not in the article, but a sister chip was, which led me to it. I wanted something low power. So this operates at 45 nanoamps at 3 volts current. So everything is designed for low power because they need it to last as long as possible on a wall and connected disconnected from a plug. And I wanted something that allowed me to do two things. I needed a pin out for interrupts. So for my alarm or for my timer or for my periodic clock to wake up and refresh when the minutes change, after 60 seconds. And then I needed another pin for my refresh to the screen. So I needed to send a 1 hertz refresh to the smart display. I needed another pin to the microcontroller to wake it up after whatever, to let it know that alarm was sounding or the timer was decided, whatever. So once I knew that, and I went in a low current usage when sleep, that kind of led me to that. So I found an article on Hackaday, which led me to a sister chip, which led me to this chip. Anyway, but it's really hard to solder. It is a funky pin out, but whatever, I'm making it work.
Excellent.
Sorry to ramble so much.
No, I love it. This is all excellent info. And it's been interesting to see like the Desk of Lady Ada segment where she's like looking for parts and like talking about why she makes choices. So now I get more curious about why people have made their choices on their hardware too.
I like this is like I really, if I could afford it, I like should send them like $1 for every one of these I made. Like between watching Desk of Lady Ada and the fact that it's open source, like so much of this is inspired by the MagTag. So I use a lot of that for designing what this chip would look, what this board would look like. Some of the examples on their Learn was like, okay, I think I can take some of these examples and apply it to what I want to do with this. But no, that like they've been a huge, huge source of inspiration. Yeah, and I think from that, one of the things that she preaches is just not like try to do as much as possible with like as little as possible. So it was like, okay, if I can find an RTC that does these 3 or 4 things, then I don't need a 555 timer. And that means I don't need the 555 timer, nor do I need the capacitors or the resistors that go with it. Or if I can do this thing, then I don't need X or Y. So there's a lot of art into creating this into creating this circuit board. Anyway.
Definitely. And then you mentioned this is going to be going on to Crowd Supply.
Yeah.
What is involved in putting together a Crowd Supply launch?
I am learning as I go. So it's been a great journey, and I am cautiously optimistic about it being successful. Who knows? When it launches, maybe no one will want it, and it'll okay. I'll be somewhat ashamed, but I'll still be proud because I made something. But I initially wanted to build actually a commercial device. I was like, you know what? It'd be kind of cool to have a nice display with this and have some really robust firmware and sell this and do it some kind of way. And as I thought through, I was like, that's pretty stupid. Like, it's kind of hard to go from building nothing to making something commercial and sell it. Like, why don't you're a maker and, use that as an advantage, make something and share it, make it open source, share it with the community and get some good ideas. Like, what would be awesome is if if people liked it and they bought it and they said, hey, this is okay, but I think you should do A, B, or C or E, F, G, then I'm getting feedback and I'm, getting feedback, at low cost because I've made a device and sold it. So, so Crowd Supply was I thought an avenue for me to do that. It was a place, it's Kickstarter for makers. So I can, it can be very open about what it is, share it. I think everyone kind of understands what you're getting and what you're not getting when you buy something there, get feedback and then decide later on, like, is there a Newt 2? Is there a Newt, a Newt extra large with a larger screen or a mini Newt? Who knows? Like, I'm looking forward to getting the feedback. But let me just go back to answer your question about the Crowd Supply process. They're very organized in how they do this. So you sign up, you get approved, and then they really manage everything by a Git. So they create a Git repository and they sign issues to you. You work the issue, they review, and then they sign you in the next issue and the next issue. So at any one time, you've got 3 or 4 things that you work on, and they're very transparent about, like, we're going to go as fast as you can go. We won't launch until you're ready to launch, and they're very clear about what the pricing is and how they structure everything. So I've been really, really happy. So.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that they structured it that way.
Yeah, there's an article that I read again on Hackaday about, I can't remember the guy's name. He created some kind of a not capture the flag, some kind of skull PCB.
Okay.
I'm not doing a great job describing it, but he goes into detail about what his Crowd Supply experience was. And after reading that, I was like, okay, I think this is the place where I want to go to see if I can launch the Newt. That's
great. And I know Timon has had really good luck with them with his Pioneera. And there's so many great projects on there. So I'm excited that yours is going to be on there too. And do you know the time frame for the Newt right now? Like,
we are hoping, the hope is that we launch. So we're in pre-launch now, so people can go and sign up. Right. But the hope is that we launch in December. Like, I'm thinking mid-December. Like, that feels right because I've gotten samples out. I've sent stuff to Crowd Supply for photos and video and all that stuff. I'm working on all the kind of the next stage of content. So the hope is that we would launch in December. And if that happens, and let's say the campaign, I don't know, a month, maybe, I don't know how long the campaign should go, but I would assume maybe 2 months after the close of the campaign, we'd have product in hand, or at least product in the Milestone Crowd Supply warehouse to distribute to the owners. That's the hope.
Wow, that's fast.
Well, I mean, I just like, Yeah, like it's not, I mean, it's
In a
like,
good way. In a good way.
in a good way. Like I'm just a big believer in like, let's get it out. Like it's not perfect. People know what it is. Like your code's not going to be perfect. Your code is never going to be perfect, right? I am not a professional embedded software engineer, right? I'm a dude who on the weekends and maybe during a little bit of vacation in the summer, I try to make some cool stuff. And hopefully the community will respect that and not skewer me too much. We'll see when I release the code.
Good. Yeah, the community is good. And I guess also that kind of ties into are you thinking folks are going to kind of use the software as is? Or are you hoping that people will kind of hack on it and there'll be maybe like a little bit of a community around it?
Maybe a little bit of both. Like the goal is for the base software to get you, just to get you familiar with using it. Like but all that'll be out there, and I hope people get in and steal snippets. Like maybe you decide this alarm function is okay, but I want to change the alarm function. Great, fantastic. Alarm function is written in Arduino on the GitHub site. Grab it. Hopefully, we'll do a Circuit Python version. Before we get it in people's hands. So the hope is that it's available if all you want to do is use the base functionality. And by the time we launch, I will have automatic updating built in as well, so that it'll always download the latest version. And if that's all you want to do, you've got it. But I also built it with a stemma QT on the back and some other things to say if you want to like go to town with it, like it's open source. Hell, make your own. Like the hardware specs are out there as well. Do whatever you want to with it. So I'm hoping there's some of that too, but we'll see.
Very cool. I had noticed the stemma QT connection, so I was wondering like, oh, did you like add more sensors and things? So
well, I went back and forth. Like I didn't, for my use case, I don't really care about what the temperature is in my room or in my office, or what the carbon or not carbon temperature or humidity, like that to me doesn't matter. External temperature extremely matters. I want to know if it's cold when I go outside, but I don't care about the temperature. But someone else might, so they may want to add a temperature sensor. So what might happen is that 10 or 15 people say, hey, it'd be really cool if you'd build a temperature sensor into it. I was like, great, good to know. I've got some more real estate on the back. If I do a version 2, I'll just slap a temperature sensor on the back, or humidity sensor, or whatever the community says. If we get to a version 2, let's just deal with version 1 right now. So, or you know what, someone else can make a version 2 because they can take all the software and they can take everything that's open source and build their own thing. So whatever.
There. Can you talk a little bit about the acrylic?
Yeah. And it's actually not acrylic.
Oh.
It's engineering board. It's like MDF, MFD. I always get the term.
Okay.
But and I started to use acrylic, but man, acrylic really smells when you cut it. And I was just like, holy smokes, I can't. And my little maker office / work office, I can't have my Glowforge like doing this. Anyway, so I knew I wanted a case or a display. I knew I wanted a stand. And I was like, well, I want something really simple to make. And I don't want to 3D print something because you've got to that's just like, I want to do something with my Glowforge, which I bought a year and a half ago and have done very little with. So I looked online and I found, people making these. In fact, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. They were making these phone holders, right?
Oh, very cool.
And using living hinges, right? So cutting lines in the board, whether it's acrylic or engineering wood or real wood, and then letting that be flexible. And I was like, I think I can use this concept and build a stand for the Newts, which is why so once I designed it and went through 3-4 iterations, I was like, oh, okay, this totally makes sense. I can do that. So I just wanted something like I like having. So I've got a few. I've got one on the refrigerator, which was in my bathroom, but it fell off the mirror and broke. So I had to I had to build it again, and then I put it on the refrigerator. In fact, I moved it in here. Let's just grab it. So so this one's got like magnet feet on it, so it can stick to the refrigerator. And then I like having one on my desk. So like this is one that sits on my desk, and it's just I can look at the time, and I just like it. I just like having it on my desk. So that's the whole reason I designed this. I don't know. I rambled. I didn't answer your question. You were just asking about it, and I don't know if I got to what you wanted me to say. So
no, yeah. I really like the hinges on it.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool. And how you can kind of adjust the height. Yeah.
And I thought of, so, I mean, I went back and forth on this. I was like, maybe I should have 2 or 3 like notches, maybe to have different settings, or maybe I should like, I plan to include little rubber feet on the bottom. So like, oh, maybe I should make a little hole at the back so people know where to put the rubber feet. Anyway, so I'll think through it. But no, the great thing is, even if the newt dies on the vine, like this display thing, I'm going to use for like 20 other ideas, like the living hinge, laser cut thing. I've got like 3 or 4 ideas already about things I can do with this.
Yeah, this is I wasn't aware of the stand, so I pulled that. I was like, oh, that is cool.
Yeah. So,
and
yeah, no, I think I'm more excited. I'm not more excited, but I'm just excited about the display as I am about the actual PCB. So
there. And I guess it kind of goes into what are you hoping to work on next? Or
that is a good question.
Okay.
So I've got 4 ideas. So I made myself. So I'm usually a work on 3 or 4 projects at any one time type of guy. And I said, well, like if you're going to actually try to sell this, like you should do the people who are going to buy it justice and just like spend time with it and get it done and do the best you can. So I haven't worked on any other project, but I am thinking about maybe 1 or 3 things. One is like maybe a more robust version of this, like a Newt 2. And there's some new chips that are coming out that might actually improve some of the Wi-Fi connectivity. So I've got to do some research there. I built a Star Trek display a few years ago, and I've always wanted to build a Circuit Python version. And I started, and the hardware at the time just wasn't like just kept running out of memory. There's not enough memory to do what I wanted to do. And I just kept getting really, really frustrated. And I didn't want to cut corners. And then finally, Adafruit released the ESP32S2 Feather, right? I'm like, okay, fantastic. Now I can take this and port my code from Arduino to Circuit Python and probably get 80% of it. So that's probably my next project. I'll probably do that and write it up because I feel like I owe the community. So that's probably my next thing. Maybe that's a Christmas thing or a New Year thing, or it depends.
Was there anything else you wanted to kind of discuss about the Newt or anything?
No, I love it. I love building it. I'm happy I built it, even if no one ever likes it or buys it. Like I learned a ton, and I'm a better maker for it. I'm probably better at my day job for it, even though I don't do this at all for work. Nothing like it at all. But I work in technology, so anytime I'm playing with technology, it makes me a better technologist. And I get to meet, like now we're talking, right? Like I've been a fan from afar, but the fact that we've had this conversation, like this is well worth it. So
big thanks to Darian for taking the time to chat with me about the Newt. I love open source options for IoT gadgets, and this is a great design with really smart features. I'll have links to the Newt in the description, and until next time, this has been Blitz City DIY.